Hello, everyone. Eric the Caterpillar here, back at it again.
What's going on? What do you have on your face?
Steven, how's it going today?
It's going good. It's going good.
That's great.
What do you have? Did you catch a disease?
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't look bad. I'm just kidding. Podcast will have no idea what we're talking about. Eric has a fat stash on his face.
Another reason why you should visit our YouTube page.
Page? What is this, 2003? YouTube channel.
You're right. YouTube channel. It's a great channel. Check it out. It's going to be reaching out to new audience. We're excited. And I feel like it's more interactive with YouTube, you know?
Yeah. More intimate, as they say.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's a good word.
That's hot.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today, Steven?
Today, we're talking about decriminalization and just all about drugs.
All about drugs.
All about drugs.
You didn't really elaborate, so I was like, you're like, decriminalization. Just no crimes. About I don't think crimes should exist.
Yeah, the decriminalization of crimes. Mic drop, you know?
Yeah. I wasn't going to actually drop it because, you know.
I kind of want to record the podcast, but
yeah.
All right. Here's our 2 cents. Okay, so decriminalization of crimes committed by using drug paraphernalia.
Yes.
So I mean,
and alcohol. Does alcohol fall in there?
Alcohol,
because we're going to talk about alcohol and
alcohol is a drug.
Yes.
It's weird to say that it is a drug because it's not viewed in society as a drug. I think so.
Is it weird to call it a drug? Like to you, like
no,
personally?
Not to me.
Right.
No.
Okay, but to society, it's like.
Yeah. It's like Yoshi. No, I just butchered that.
I just butchered that. Does the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Where to start? So, we touched on it a bit. We just passed over with Richard Nixon on the war on drugs, and that sort of gave us the idea and started the ball rolling of. I mean, we have been wanting to talk about it for a bit, the decriminalization of drugs.
Yeah.
But I guess, we'll start off with, obviously, the war on drugs. And I feel like that was the beginning of creating the bad view into society being against and viewing drugs as, some people that do drugs as, like, bad. Although, like, drugs aren't good, obviously.
And I think to elaborate on the point you just made, I think people associate other people that do drugs as bad people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, drugs are bad.
Yeah.
I don't think what we're saying is that drugs are good.
No, we're not.
But the people that have heavy addictions in these hard drugs, it's not that they're bad people.
No.
Right?
No, that's the thing.
But that's the thing with the crimes. It's like labeling them as bad people.
Yeah.
But deep down, they're struggling internally like you wouldn't believe.
I mean, there are bad people that do drugs.
Naturally.
There's no exclusivity about that. But
sure.
There's a lot of people that are good people that just fall into the hard times and the struggle with addiction.
Right, for sure.
And some people, I think it's a hereditary. Is that what you say when it's like follows your family?
I think so, yeah.
That it's a trait that you can
addiction.
get from your family.
Sure.
Addiction is that. So obviously with some people, it's a lot more difficult to deal with. Some people, especially excluding the harder drugs, but find it easier to quit drugs, like alcohol or whatever, pretty easily.
And that's the thing. Like, you could be crass and say, like, well, it was their choice to do that, and I understand that exists. Like, at the end of the day, of course.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
it is your choice.
It comes down to the person.
But does it mean we just give up on that person?
No.
I'm too personally. I have too much empathy flowing inside my body to just be like, nah, you can deal with it. You you got into this mess, you can get out of
Because it's a mental health issue.
Exactly. And since so many people are so passionate about mental health, you got to dig deep, right?
There might be some
substance abuse falls in there.
Yeah, definitely. There might be some of the bad views around drugs and people dealing with drugs just because of, I guess it might be, they're doing something that's causing them to have the mental health problems, which is the addiction in this case. But like, so it's a vicious cycle, right? So you start it and then you become addicted, and then you go through those tough times with the addiction, and you're constantly going back and forth. But I mean, it's definitely the issue with like we said, the war on drugs and making them making society look upon people that use them in a negative light. I mean, and that was even a thing with marijuana and the war on drugs too. Like that was one of the big things that they were trying to get rid of.
The sentences,
which were insane, and even in Canada too.
Absolutely.
Like you could get jail time. For like no problem.
Right.
Like 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And now like they're pardoning people because of it. Because I don't know if it's.
Imagine like getting pardoned.
Yeah.
Because now it's like legal.
Yeah.
So what you did back then was like very legal, and you got smacked with a huge sentence.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're being pardoned because it's completely legal now.
And it's weird too.
Your mind must be blown.
And that's the thing. If you got jail time and you obviously be pardoned on the stuff that influenced your life after the fact. So any stuff that you weren't allowed to do, or you have a criminal record or stuff like that, but being like serving that time, you can't get that time back because all of a sudden they just decided to make it legal now.
Right.
And it's something, I mean, so consuming drugs and doing drugs, however I guess there's other ways to do them than consuming.
There's many creative ways. Yeah.
That I feel like there's a point to be said that's different than selling them illegally.
Yes. Would you identify that as a crime, drug dealing?
I think so.
I would. Yeah.
I think so.
I think
because
I would also consider that.
It's something that.
Well, because we firmly believe that, first of all, a drug should be decriminalized. So drug dealers wouldn't exist. It'd be controlled and regulated by either a public sector or private sector.
There's two sides to that too, yeah.
Probably not private.
So, hopefully not private.
We talked about that last podcast.
Private
hopefully
sector,
not private.
big bad.
Oh my goodness.
No, if you decriminalize it, it's not necessarily giving the ease of access to it. There's 2 points. So if you decriminalize it, Portugal. So we'll just come out of the bag. Portugal decriminalized.
If you decriminalize it, Portugal.
My mind is running. You know how it is.
Absolutely.
So Portugal decriminalized it, but they didn't make it free, or not free, accessible to everyone. So they're not publicly giving it away. They're still the drug dealers.
Okay, that's interesting.
But there's also the fact that you can make it available, and it would get rid of that sector of it too, which is the dealers and the drug lords that are providing it.
Sure.
I mean, we'll get into both sides of it, because it's bad either way. I think personally it's worse getting it off the street if it's decriminalized, because you don't know what is in it, right? That can be laced with, especially now with the opioid crisis in the States and North America, fentanyl. It's just horrible.
Yes, it truly sad. Absolutely.
And it's sad because it's like there's people dealing with addiction, so you need that stuff, or you need to figure out to go through rehab and stuff like that. But so they're living off it. They're not so much living off it, but they're forced to function and purchase those drugs, and they're being laced to make the side of the drug dealers cheaper, to make the product cheaper.
Right.
but it's extremely deadly.
Mm-hmm.
Way worse
all
than
about
any
profit.
other drug would be.
And it doesn't matter if somebody's life's on the line.
Yeah. And have you seen that picture? There's a picture of heroin next to fentanyl, and it's like 4 or 5 teaspoons of heroin compared to like a couple grains of fentanyl.
Wow.
What will kill you? Like lethal dose.
Wow.
It's just like not even a gram, like milligrams.
Right. That's powerful
crazy
stuff. Wow.
So that's why it's. But when it comes to actually publicly giving people the drug, so it's not that. That'll stop people in the first place getting addicted to drugs if they're off the streets, right? Because the government won't be going around saying who wants heroin, you know, like we'll just give it away if you want to get addicted to it.
Yeah.
So it'll stop that part, but at the same time, it'll have to be severely controlled, and there'll have to be something in the back end that supports selling those drugs.
Sure, and I think it would also be very difficult to stop illegal sales of drugs, like the black market of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it won't put a stop to it, even if you.
No, well, just like it didn't with cannabis
Mm-hmm.
in Canada.
Right.
It didn't do away with the black market. It's not really called the black market. It's a gray market now. Because it's sort of a gray area in the law, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, like you see things, for example, like there's applications such as weed maps.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the disclosure, it's like, oh, just friends giving other friends weed.
Well, that's what they do. You know, that's how they get away with it.
Which is just kind
they
of funny.
say, I'm giving you the gift of something, and
Yeah.
you're just paying me because you're donating me.
Right.
To me the money, and that's why it's a little bit. It's funny, but I mean that's a way to legally get around it. Shit, I didn't think of that one.
That's pretty good.
GG. You keep doing you. But I mean, there is a significant difference in purchasing something off that or purchasing something off the black market.
Sure, absolutely.
Danger. It's not like that. I feel like cannabis isn't really a good example because it's not a very hard drug at all.
Right.
But it just reduces like the danger and the gangs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. The violence that comes with
Yeah.
it. And
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly.
But speaking about violence,
Mhm.
right? Well, do you want to continue on Portugal? Because I was going to...
No, yeah, we'll get to Portugal in a bit.
Okay, cool.
Portugal.
So, for example, what I was reading regarding violent incidents regarding drugs, the one that always sticks up is alcohol.
Yeah.
There's more violent situations correlated with alcohol than any other drugs,
Mm-hmm. And
which is crazy, because that's
it is
probably
crazy.
one of the only drugs that is absolutely celebrated and socially acceptable.
So I wonder if that's why. I was just thinking that because it is so widely available and you can go anywhere and purchase it, especially in the States. Like you can go to a corner store and buy like a
And even
40
here
of
in Canada,
vodka.
we're starting to
Yeah, we are.
adapt the ways
Yeah.
now in grocery
The
stores
ways
such as
of the
Walmart,
States,
the ways of the States. Hopefully we don't adapt all their ways.
No, well, that's another discussion.
Yeah.
No, but it's so I wonder if the violence is so bad because pretty much everybody consumes alcohol.
Well,
But there are people that obviously there's people that don't.
I would say it's also the effects, right,
Yeah,
of alcohol.
but is it? That's what I was gonna say.
Doesn't it tend to make you more aggressive?
Not. It depends on
Depends
what,
who you are.
Yeah, who you are and what alcohol you're consuming. Like
Sure.
hard liquor for some people, obviously because it's higher constant, higher percentage.
Sure.
That it makes people angrier that way.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on your temperament for sure.
But that's what. Yeah. So being so widely available and everybody that does it, and it's so easy to get your hands on and not have to worry about
Any
anything,
repercussions?
any
Nothing.
repercussions about that, even societal repercussions. Really, like in the grand scheme of things, there's no societal repercussions. So if it's that easily to overindulge in it, is that why the crime is so much higher?
Maybe. Another thing is, for example, when somebody either voluntarily gets admitted to rehab or it's a family intervention, who knows? But when somebody goes into rehab for their alcohol abuse and addiction,
Mm-hmm.
it's viewed I feel like it's viewed more as a positive thing. And when it's rehab for a harder drug, there's a lot less empathy.
You're right.
And it's like,
you're right.
It's like, well, again, it goes back to, well, you decided to do that in the first place.
Well, you decided to consume alcohol in the first place.
Right. There's a stigma on the hard drugs, for sure. For sure.
And I think that is partially to do with it being illegal. Like pretty much all to do with it being illegal.
I would say absolutely pass that picture.
I mean, it might be the fact too that it's so. I don't. It's hard to even say that. So what first came to my mind was that it is so much easier to consume your life and ruin your life, but alcohol can, right? So why is the first thing that I think of is the hard drugs can easily consume your life,
right?
Whereas alcohol is pretty much it.
That's society working in the gears of your brain, absolutely no, it's easily done. Over consuming alcohol and dying, easily done.
So that's something that it's definitely a point to be said, at least, that if the crime because Portugal, getting back to Portugal, the crime rates in Portugal are significantly lower from decriminalizing drugs.
Right.
So it doesn't have to do with, again, it might have to do with the widespread use of alcohol compared to the widespread use of harder drugs. Sure. If there's a bigger sample size, if there's more people that are indulging in it, the numbers will be higher.
Right.
So it could be something to do with that. It could also be just because it's a lot different too. That's the danger. Is like you can drink a beer or two a night, or a couple every week. You can have a couple beers, and that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
No, of course not.
But it's the extreme of it where you can overindulge too often, and that becomes violent. So it might be the range and the possibilities, because with harder drugs, there's not really the first part. Like you can't just like do it. I mean, some people can actually. I watched a video.
Like recreationally using hard drugs?
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't
do that
rare.
with all drugs.
It's very rare.
For example, heroin, it creates a physical dependence pretty quick.
No, but it's even still, it's very rare compared to with alcohol.
Yes.
It depends on your personality too, how addictive your personality is.
Sure.
So Portugal, they decriminalized drugs in 2000.
Okay.
So their HIV rates have significantly went down. Let me get actually.
Well, I mean,
you got
to think as well when before they decriminalized it, how the regime was controlled, right? We were talking about it. The regime in Portugal was brutal. It was trying to keep the population as uneducated as possible, right? And people were shooting up in the streets.
Yeah.
Like it was just anybody's business.
Absolutely.
And it was almost like a plague.
Yeah.
I would say.
I saw so one of the
So Portugal, I would say, would be an extreme example.
Yeah, I would.
But it
so
does
too.
support.
So it's an extreme example in two senses. It was extreme beforehand, and the example I'll give here shows that.
They had.
So they had an authoritarian rule, which is basically like dictatorship almost. So this is a quote from The Guardian in their article about Portugal and their decriminalization of hard drugs. In truth, there was a lot of ignorance back then. 40 years of authoritarian rule under the regime established by Salazar in 1933 had suppressed education, weakened institutions, and lowered the school leaving age in a strategy intended to keep the population docile. I mean, that would also keep the population uneducated, right? The country was closed to the outside world. People missed out on experimentation. This is a good part. Experimentation on the mind-expanding culture of the 1960s. That's one way to put it.
Mind expanding.
When the regime ended abruptly in a military coup in 1974, Portugal was suddenly opened to new markets and influences, like the U.S., North America. Under the old regime, Coca-Cola was banned, and owning a cigarette lighter required a license, which is mind-boggling. Wait a minute. When marijuana and then heroin began flooding in, the country was utterly unprepared because they never saw that before, right? So like it was external factors that they never had anything to do with.
Yeah, they were never exposed to it.
Because, I mean, part of it because it was all needed to be imported illegally.
Right.
And which was never allowed under the rule that they had under Salazar. Salazar, actually. So it was an extreme dictatorship that then led to another extreme, which was an overabundance of, holy shit, this is crazy. We're out of the rule. Let everybody party.
Yeah.
And start doing hard drugs, right?
Start taking heroin, guys.
And so that's a thing, too, is everybody was influenced by it. So there wasn't one, like every family knew somebody and was closely affected by the drug crisis.
Yes.
Which is something that is different. Actually, it's not that different. It's starting to get closer to the opioid crisis in North America.
Right.
Because it's starting to get really like a lot bigger where everybody at least knows somebody that was affected by it, that is currently being affected by it. But so that's what caused the major change in the
social
decriminalization.
Change yeah.
So it was that's important. It was a social change which then brought in the policies. So everybody wanted to help and wanted to fix stuff because they knew something was obviously wrong.
Right. Well, that's what I mean by if you want to strive for social change, you should strive to change policies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
you need to be the example and the policies will follow you. If
right.
there's that many people doing it, the same thing with the prison system.
Yeah.
If there's that many people making those changes and wanting to be that change in the country and in the world, it'll happen.
Eventually it'll happen. Absolutely.
And so that's the thing. So what they focus on with their decriminalization is social work, like psychotherapy. They focus on safe injection sites, on clean needle swaps, so they return the used old dirty needles and get new needles.
It's like it's almost on a schedule too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very monitored. It's professionally.
Something they adopted too, which we adopt in Canada, is methadone clinics.
Yes. And do we have dopamine clinics as well in Canada?
Dopamine, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I know we have methadone clinics.
Okay.
And I mean, methadone clinics it's difficult too because it's replacing an addiction with another addiction.
Yeah.
But the methadone, it doesn't. You need it, but it doesn't ruin your life as much as heroin.
Right.
It's not better. I mean, but it is better. It's
that's
not.
The thing with heroin and why heroin is so dangerous is because when you get addicted to heroin, you'll be on drugs for the rest of your life. You're either going to be on heroin for the rest of your life, and then you're going to watch your life disappear, or methadone clinics. You're going to be on that for the rest of your life because your body becomes physically addicted.
Yeah,
it's not a mental addiction.
No, at that point, no.
Right? Like, for example, I would say marijuana is more of a mental addiction than a physical addiction. It's up here that you have to have the battle.
Same with alcohol. Alcohol is more.
It has detrimental physical impacts.
No, it does. Yeah, I just thought of it. Yeah, when you're really like when you're a functioning alcoholic and drinking every day and getting hammered in the mornings.
Right.
It has a physical addiction.
For sure. And like withdrawal symptoms and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whereas from what I've read, marijuana withdrawal symptoms are rare. And for most people, maybe last 7 to 14 days. Okay. So for withdrawal symptoms to last 1 to 2 weeks, it's like a blessing compared to all the other drugs, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely.
And that's why heroin is so all right. And we're back after a little technical glitch.
It's becoming sort of a
trend.
A trend, yeah.
But what we will be doing is investing in a nice camera.
Yeah.
So because we're using our phones and the phones overheat, which causes the recording to stop for our wonderful YouTube audience.
Yeah.
So let's get back on track here.
Okay.
Right. So last thing I said was the reason, you can't just come off of heroin.
No.
Because then you die.
Yeah.
Right. Your body goes into shock and it's done because you're physically addicted to it.
Yeah.
So either ways, when you get addicted to heroin, you're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life.
You will be.
That's just a given.
Yeah.
But one life, I would say, is worth living compared to the other.
Yeah.
You know, when you're addicted to heroin, I don't, you know.
No, yeah.
You're pretty deep in there.
Uh-huh. I mean,
but
it's not always like that, though. Like, some people can... I don't know
yeah,
if
but
it's
we're
so
talking
much
about
depending.
addictions, right?
No, even with addictions.
Of heroin?
Yeah, there's
Or
some people
function?
that can function and get off it. It's rare,
Heroin.
again, yeah. Yeah. Through severe rehab.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, there's... It can happen.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
I'd like to see the stats on that.
I don't know exactly how much it happens, but I know that it is.
I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah,
have
it's
to look at
something
that.
to look into also.
Absolutely.
So with the back to Portugal, since they decriminalized it, which are a lot of the positives, they've seen a dramatic drop in overdoses. Because a lot of the time overdoses, especially if it's being controlled, overdoses a lot of the time happen when it's either mixed, cut with fentanyl or another substance
Right.
that they don't know, or
Right. Especially when it's regulated.
yeah, exactly.
Because like you said, that picture between like an overdose of pure heroin and an overdose of laced heroin, it's like all it needs is a little bit of fentanyl, like you said,
exactly.
which is scary.
It's really scary, extremely scary. But it's also, if it's controlled on not how they get it, but if it's also controlled on how much they're using. So when they relapse, it's the same with alcohol too. When you relapse on it, you go back to what you were using before when you were addicted, and it's too much for you, so you overdose because your body doesn't have a tolerance anymore.
Right.
So you use what you were using beforehand, and that's like a thing with a lot of drugs too. So
Yeah.
being controlled in that sense too,
Disciplined.
and having an external, like something externally, like social workers or whatever, keeping track of it.
Sure.
Especially when you're trying to, because relapses happen, and especially in Portugal, unfortunately, they do happen, but they're not. They don't frown upon something like that happening.
Right.
Because like you have to support it, especially with the social worker working with you.
Well, that's the thing is a social worker's approach is very empathetic. So they're not going to lower you down just because you go back into previous behaviors.
Exactly.
That's what they're there to do, is to help you, is to support you through your bad choices. It's not that you're a bad person.
No, not
You're
at
just making bad choices.
Exactly.
And they're there to support you through that.
And having that support, is very needed, especially with any mental illness, right? So addiction being a mental illness, anything, having that unconditional support is very good.
So I want to present the bear case here. So in a perfect world, sure, a social worker is helping you. However, most of the time it's a substance abuse counselor or a drug addiction counselor. And for example, the one problem I see with decriminalizing is, well, especially right now, is because we don't have the infrastructure to support enough of these people. And it's not even about infrastructure as well. So by what I mean by infrastructures is like, for example, the clinics, the methadone clinics, or the
safe injection sites.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure what to call them, but
Yeah.
safe injection sites where there's support there, right? It takes a multidisciplinary team
Yeah.
to work in those places. And that's a heavy job to do mentally.
Absolutely.
And physically.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's physical interventions as well when
Guaranteed.
somebody's in rehab and going through relapse. Some compare it to dying.
Oh yeah.
So you're fighting against your own life at that point. And in a perfect world, sure, it's a social worker helping you, and social workers get paid a lot more than substance abuse counselors. So on average,
I didn't know that there's a substance abuse counselor as a job. Oh, okay.
that's usually that's usually the position, because they have the same approach as a social worker.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
But for a social worker, you usually need a master's
Okay.
degree.
Okay.
To be considered a social worker. And on average, these drug counselors, on average, make around $44,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
The lowest end is $28,000 a year, and the highest end is $72,000 a year.
Yeah.
But the average is 44.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely depends on how much you're educated and where you're working out of, right? Those prices of the salaries.
Right, for sure. And it's just that the thing is, in the psychology field, to be paid, a lot of the times to be well paid, you need a master's.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a degree doesn't even cut it.
Yeah.
You'll still be making not as much money as you would like for the type of job that you're doing.
Exactly.
Because while it would be more mentally draining than physical, the mental drain is real.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with people with addictions,
Mm-hmm.
that's some heavy shit.
It is.
And it takes a whole multidisciplinary team. And to begin with, we're in shortage of these types of counselors.
For that reason, right? Because they're not making good money. And
Right.
you can't find jobs as it is right now.
No, exactly. And the jobs you do find are on the private sector,
Mm-hmm.
very sketchy jobs, and you're making little to no money for the type of job that you're doing.
Definitely.
So I think we would need to revamp that first.
Yeah.
To better reward and to better as an incentive to take that as a career path.
Yeah.
Because I feel like right now there's no incentives.
No, the only incentive people are doing to pursue those, and the only reason people are pursuing those career paths is because they want to do that. They want to.
Right.
They really find their purpose in helping other people.
Which is great.
And caring for other people.
Absolutely. One of my main beliefs is, yes, you should find purpose, but in an economy like this, you want to be making decent money at least as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say we need to adapt new ways, but we're not there as a society. I don't think.
No,
we're not there, and I don't think we'll.
See, that's the realistic approach. You're right, because Portugal and people that have adopted the decriminalization, they saw the extreme of it,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody was affected, and the only option is to seek to make change happen.
Right.
Being proactive for a change is difficult as a society to back because it doesn't affect everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the majority of the population is selfish.
Mm-hmm.
So if it doesn't affect them,
Right.
why bother?
And I remember my friend, one of my good friends said, it was a question about democracy. Is democracy doing what's best for society or doing what's best for you?
That's good.
Which was like, that hits.
Yeah.
That's been making me think a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been making me question more some of my choices when I think about that. Because it's true.
It is true.
It's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to change? Do you want to be part of the change in society, or do you want to keep feeding into the system we've got going on now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or do you find a balance? Is there a balance?
Is there a balance?
Big questions.
That's a big question.
Right. But I think to even begin to talk about decriminalization, we've got to have the support there, and we don't have it.
No.
So, because, for example, I think when we decriminalize, it's still illegal. So, for example, the consequence would be you'd have to go into one of these treatment centers and rehab. That's your consequence.
Yeah.
You have to go there. You have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, you need that infrastructure. You need a multidisciplinary team, and you need incentives for those people to go into that field, to be more driven, to not only be driven by passion, because to be simply driven by passion in an economy like this, it's not enough.
It gets to you.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say. I don't know.
No, it does.
I'm not spitting facts here. I'm just
personal
reflecting. Yeah. Because I wouldn't do that job for $44,000 a year.
No, exactly.
Or for $50,000.
Exactly.
No.
Even if you like you
and
said,
I'm in that field.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No way I'm doing that type of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I it would interest me, but yeah, there's
it's
just
weighing the pros and cons, right?
It's weighing the pros and cons, and So yeah, that's what I mean by I think our society isn't there yet.
And so I guess when you think of it on a surface level, decriminalization, addiction and the use of drugs, those kind of drugs, or any drugs, and really like it'll be a thing in society no matter what.
Oh, of course.
So even if we leave it how it is now, it'll still be a thing. Even if we decriminalize it, it'll still be a thing. So why not make it so it kills less people, because people are going to do it anyways.
Right.
Make it less societally. That's a word. Societally unacceptable.
It is, yeah.
Make it more accepted and
right.
real, like a real problem.
Yes.
And work with people to figure it out.
And that's the thing. It doesn't mean you tolerate the problem.
No.
Right? It's still a bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean you just leave those people unsupported.
No, yeah, exactly. Because with any, like we said already, with any mental health, the support system needed is what's really important. And
the empathy path is a proven system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's very powerful stuff. You know, if you can have someone supporting you continuously, it helps a lot of people dig out of their own graves.
Oh, it definitely does. There's one more little bit of the article that I wanted to read. It's from the same article in The Guardian. These social movements take time. The fact that this happened across the board in a conservative society such as ours, talking about Portugal, had some impact. If the heroin epidemic had only affected Portugal's lower classes or radicalized minorities, and not the middle or upper classes, he doubts the conversation around drugs, addiction, and harm reduction would have taken shape in any way. Which is very unfortunate, but I think it's true.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And we talked about that in the last podcast, you know, how there's upper classes just as likely, if not more, to participate in the same behaviors. Mm-hmm. But why is the stigma only for the low income?
Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
Wow.
It's because, I mean,
like you would say in French, c'est pas fort.
C'est pas fort. It's not strong. Not hard. Whatever.
No, you can't translate that in English. It's an expression in French.
I know, but.
Stop.
Okay, sorry. No, yeah, it's... and starting off with the... making society see it as the addiction, like we said already 100 times. I think that's a good start, and getting the infrastructure in place is a good start. But it's not, decriminalization is not making purchasing the drugs and selling like dealers legal, because that fundamentally,
that would make no sense.
That doesn't make
no
any
because
sense.
Then that would be like an incentive for people to kind of try hard drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think that would be the best decision either.
No.
Like that would be a bear case where, again, it doesn't mean just because you decriminalize it doesn't mean you legalize it.
No.
So it doesn't open that door for regular people to be like, oh, you know what? I kind of want to try heroin.
Yeah.
Or cocaine or whatever, you know. Yeah. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sweet.
That was our 2 cents on it. There's a whole lot to it.
2 guys, 4 cents.
2 guys. That was our 4 cents on it. That was 2 4 cents on it. I mean, it's interesting because starting off with the research that we did on this, I didn't know that Portugal decriminalized it. And it's also very important to look at a successful. I mean, so 2 sides of it. Being the first country and first set of people to break the ground and actually decriminalize all drugs,
right,
is extremely difficult, but also very important.
Yes, and I would say
somebody needs to take the first step.
And I would say societal change is daunting, right? And not a lot of people, including myself, like it's hard to become ready for societal change, and to strive for that, but just to see it in the works and see that it is possible, right? Such as the last podcast with the Norway prison system, where it is possible, and that also was a societal change. Societal change is possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you need enough voices.
You do.
And you need to also organize yourselves in a certain way. And it's hard to organize that many people.
Yeah, it is.
And you need to attack the policies.
Not physically attack.
No.
See, that's the thing. It needs to be
don't
peaceful.
physically attack anything.
No, because you won't get anywhere with that.
But you need to... Your plan of attack needs to be on the policies, not on the politicians, for example.
Politicians,
they're all the same.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They're all the same. You attack the policy.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
But thankfully, you can't physically attack a policy.
That's good.
So,
I mean, you can punch
so
paper.
I'm safe.
You punch in paper, you might be on the drugs that you're trying to decriminalize. Wait a minute.
Punching paper? If you're punching paper at home,
tell us about it, right? In the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of the societal changes I'm sure that we will cover in the future. These are, things that we're for, but there's also, it's a lot more difficult, right? So you say decriminalize something or make this change, like, oh, just do it.
But you got to dig deep.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot of people, a lot of organization. It's a lot of work.
So, for example, when we were digging deep to make a bit of a bear case, well, you see that we're simply not ready to take that step because of the infrastructures.
Exactly.
We're just not ready to support that change.
No. The thing is, when it comes down to it, the people that are going to be supporting that change are the people that should be fighting for the change.
Right.
Because the people that are going to be supporting it, the social workers, the infrastructure, those are all people that, they're not the politicians.
Right.
Right. So they're the people that are going to be seeing the change. So fight for that.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
That's awesome. Same here.
Okay.
I'm Eric.
I'm Steven.
That was our 2 cents. Stay tuned for the next episode. We're always excited to bring you all a new one. I believe... Can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. The next topic, we will talk about cryptocurrencies. Something we are very interested in, and it's something that's constantly evolving. So we're gonna discuss that. But
I want to get in deep in it, and we're really gonna talk about just educate people on what it is,
right,
and then go from there.
Because
a lot of people, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. I'm sure you know what Bitcoin is. You don't know what cryptocurrency is, so
right. And thank you all so much for the endless support. That was our 2 cents, and ciao for now.
Take care.